Good afternoon and welcome. I call the fourth meeting of the Budget Review Subcommittee on Primary and Secondary Education and Workforce Development to order. At this time, we'll have Amy call the roll.
Representative Baker. Representative Bojanowski.
Here.
Representative Lewis.
Here.
Representative Raymond. Representative Riley. Here. Chair Banta.
Here. Members have been given time to review the draft minutes from our prior meeting, and I will now hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Thank you. Today we have representatives from the Kentucky Department of Education, and they will be presenting an overview of literacy and math programs. If these representatives will please come to the front of the table and identify yourselves for the record.
MICKI Ray, Chief Academic Officer in the Office of Teaching and Learning at the Kentucky Department of Education.
And CHRISTIE Biggerstaff. Thank you. CHRISTIE Biggerstaff, Director of Early Literacy in the Office of Teaching and Learning at the Kentucky Department of Education.
Okay, and we're missing Dr. Thomas Tucker.
Yes, ma'am. He ended up having a meeting conflict and is unable to be with us this morning.
Oh, well. Yeah, presenting to the reps, that's important. Okay. At this time, could you please raise your right hands? Please raise your right hand, and do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You may proceed.
All right. Well, good afternoon, members of the committee. Thank you so much for the time and space to be able to share our literacy and numeracy initiatives that are being implemented across the state. I want to begin today by looking at the data that informed our decision-making processes for early literacy initiatives that we do have ongoing throughout the Commonwealth. And this information is certainly not new to you, but state summative assessment data reveals that each year approximately half of our Kentucky third graders are scoring below proficiency. That means that even before the pandemic, from the period of 2015 to 2019, approximately 118,000 Kentucky third graders were scoring below proficiency on that state summative assessment. So we want to see an improvement in reading outcomes for students. We want students to be equipped and empowered to have continued academic success and lifelong success well beyond the transition from K through 12 education. So we feel as if this issue of early literacy should be a focus because frankly it is a moral imperative, and we have the responsibility as a state to support our earliest readers and improve the instruction and implementation supports across the Commonwealth. When we dig deeper into the student demographic data, the inequities become even more concerning. So this chart shows 2022 data. But unfortunately, this is not isolated to one academic year. This is trend data and further evidence of why early literacy must be addressed systemically and collectively. What we are doing isn't working for all students. The data shows us that. We cannot be okay with the status quo. Statistically, if 63 to 75% of any student group is performing below proficiency, Kentucky has a problem with Tier 1 core instruction. And this is significant because you cannot intervene your way out of Tier 1 instructional problems. We also know that we must address the diverse reading needs of our youngest readers sooner rather than later. And Senate Bill 9, the Read to Succeed Act, which was passed last session, supports early identification, prevention, and comprehensive actions for improving early literacy instruction and interventions to create a rich experience for students across the state. So I want to begin by talking about the Read to Succeed Act and the associated fund. The Read to Succeed Fund provides $11 million each year of the biennium budget, totaling $22 million. But I want to talk first about the Read to Achieve grant, the RTA grant funding, and that is beyond the $11 million designation for the Read to Succeed Fund. So RTA is its own budget line item of $15.9 million each year. And you can see there that in this last round, the grant cycle began in 22-23, so this is the first year of the new grant cycle. We awarded 149 schools $62,000 each, and that is primarily utilized for the salary of a reading interventionist at each of those schools. But I wanted to make note, with the remaining funding, we also have an upcoming request for application process. It's a mini grant opportunity, and this will go toward the funding for the purchase of high quality instructional and intervention resources for Tier 2 and Tier 3, and any sort of associated high quality professional learning that teachers would need to better implement that instructional resource. So that is coming and is in process at the moment. And so we're looking very much forward to be able to supporting schools in the purchase of valid and reliable instructional resources. And I'm going to transition now to Christy. She's going to walk through several of the other initiatives here for Read to Succeed.
Another really important piece of this bill is early intervention and the instruction component. Teachers need high-quality assessments in order to make instructional decisions and create intervention plans. So Senate Bill 9 required superintendents to select by January the 1st, 2023, a reliable and valid universal screener, and they're supposed to give that to all K through 3 students. If that screener deems a student to be at risk, they are to be given a reliable and valid diagnostic assessment, and that dives deeper into their literacy subskills, and it's so the teacher can generate very specific interventions based upon those deficits. And then all teachers must be trained on how to effectively give the universal screener and diagnostic assessment, and then interpret and analyze that data. To help support the districts, KDE has compiled a list of approved universal screeners and diagnostics. We spent a long time looking at the criteria we developed from the National Center of Intensive Intervention, and then digging into the data of technical assessments. It's as fun as it sounds like it is, and looking and making sure that the assessments were valid and reliable. We also added some additional information on that universal screener list, and that is to denote the universal screeners had components to screen for dyslexia. And we wanted to make sure that if they were screened to be at risk for dyslexia, they can be given additional diagnostic assessments and diagnose and intervene. We have 9 approved universal screeners on our list, and 5 of those have built-in dyslexia screeners. And we have 7 approved I just lost my words. We have 7 approved diagnostic assessments on the list. Districts are also provided 2 different types of information on the website, and it gives them pertinent information to make those decisions about which assessment to give: cost, specific skills that it assesses, frequency and validity, and reliability information on each assessment. Now we're going to talk about another important piece of Senate Bill 9, the state professional learning support strategies, and it's actually the piece that I'm most excited to tell you about today. So in order to take that assessment data that I just talked about and use those results to close the students' literacy gaps, teachers must be able to deliver impactful, evidence-based literacy instruction. So that is the purpose of the Kentucky Reading Academies, to increase the reading outcomes for the students of Kentucky and to raise the percentages that Mickey talked about just a few minutes ago. So what is the professional learning? That is letters, language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, and it is a rigorous professional learning experience. It is 2 years of paced instruction. It is not for the faint of heart. It's 4 units of study per year, 8 units total. It helps to teach our teachers what to teach students in order to get them to read, why some students struggle, and give them some evidence-based strategies on how to correct those struggles and overcome those struggles, and then how the brain learns to read. Humans are born with the ability to learn to speak and to talk, but reading is a man-made thing. So you have to be explicitly and systematically taught how to read. So that is what Letters proposes to do. We have over 1,800 participants in Phase 1, which I think is phenomenal, in an opt-in professional learning. That touches 124 different school districts in the state of Kentucky, 440 different schools, which approximately would then touch over 26,000 students, and then 1,100 classroom teachers. So we're going to look at some data. The first screen that you see here is the pre-assessment and post-assessment results in the participants of Phase 1. And these are the ones that have completed all 4 units of study in the first year. The assessment asks questions about how students learn to read, just general literacy strategies, and why some students struggle. So you can see there on their pre-test, the average was 61%, and then on the post-test, it was 93%. And we are very encouraged about that increase in knowledge with our participants. Additionally, just some added information, in order to be a facilitator of this work and this learning, you have to score at least an 88% on each of the units. We also gave a survey to all Phase 1 participants in January. Now, keep in mind, at this point, they had only completed 2 units of the 4 of this year, of the 8 total. So 2 units into the learning, and this is the information that we have gathered thus far. So we had 433 respondents to this survey, multiple written testimonials about shared classroom assessment gains, student progress, the value of the information that the teachers were learning, and overwhelmingly, this survey was very positive. 94.8% of the respondents said, yes, I have learned new information from letters. The second question we asked them is it relevant information? And again, overwhelmingly, they said, 95% said, yes, it's relevant. And that is the key to a meaningful professional learning, is making it relevant to their role. So no matter if they're an administrator, a teacher, interventionist, a coach, whatever that might be, they find this information to be relevant. And then the last question we asked them was, does this help you better meet the needs of your diverse learners? Again, overwhelmingly, they said yes. 92% of our respondents strongly agreed. So this information and learning that they are getting from this professional learning, coupled with high quality comprehensive reading programs and aligned intervention supports, will just better support the accelerating our students toward proficiency. We also asked them what their challenges were, because we knew that there were going to be challenges when giving this professional learning. And we knew going in what those challenges might be. And that's number one, the time commitment of this work. It's 2 years. It's something that we've never done as a state, to have this lengthy of a professional learning. 2 years. It's not a set and get. It's not a one and done. It is a lot of information. So we knew the time commitment was going to be a lot. These are professionals. These are educators and administrators who have a full-time job, and then a lot of them take on additional responsibilities in the afternoons and in the mornings. So they're doing this on top of that commitment. And then, the commitment that they have of having a life outside of the 4 walls of schools is also on top of that. So we knew that this was going to be challenging for them. It's also very rigorous, and our participants said so. It's difficult. This is a master's level course. It's a lot of information. I'm taking it myself, so it is a lot of time, and it's rigorous. A quote there that's on the screen, it said, "A time commitment is my biggest challenge. All of the learning is fantastic and deep, but with that comes a significant commitment of time, reading, case study, data collection, online modules." This is a quote from Miss Courtney Line at Memorial Elementary in Hart County School District. I'm not going to read that entire quote, but I do want to tell her story. A 3rd grader walked into her classroom and said, "I can't read and I don't want to read." And Miss Courtney had taken at that point 2 units of study in letters, and she started applying that information to that child. And she said he has made significant gains in a short amount of time, actually a whole year's worth, according to the assessment data. She said, is he where he needs to be? No, but he's getting there. He's making improvements. I think the best part of her story is he now volunteers to read. He's got that confidence. He says, "I am a reader." But I think something that's very powerful that she says at the very end of her quote that I love, it says, "Letters transforms how educators think about teaching reading. I know it's really changed my view of how I plan instruction." And just a couple of more, because we had so many, and I hear from so many districts about their letters professional learning and their experience. But wanted to point out that Mark Gaskins at Fort Thomas said, "This has been the best learning experience I've had in 19 years of teaching." I hear that all the time from a teacher that's had 5 years, 10 years, 15, 25 years, they say this is the best professional learning I have ever had in my entire career. Cindy Kennedy in Rockcastle County says, I have a lot of credentials behind her name. She has a lot of PD and a lot of different degrees, but this is the training I have been asking for decades. Every teacher should have this training. Christy Rose in Jefferson County says, I have been able to apply my knowledge almost immediately after completing the lessons. Narissa Crisp in Scott County says the interventionists have been bragging on my Tier 3 students, truly making a difference in reading confidence and abilities of my students. And the last one, Christy Nelson in Livingston County says, Letters has given me a deeper understanding of the essential knowledge necessary for transformational change. Now I'm going to yield to Representative Bojanowski, who is also a Letters Phase 1 participant and would like to say something.
All right. So, yeah, when you were talking about teachers and full-time jobs and everything and state representative, right? So I am in the middle of the Letters training. It has been the most phenomenal training that I've ever participated in, and I've done a lot of school. You know, I had a lesson a week ago, Saturday, a synchronous lesson, and I'm just like aching to get back in my classroom because not only do you get practical things, it gives you the overview. When Rep. Tipton, a couple of years ago, we were talking about the reading bill, and I was like, well, let me dig into the research. Well, in Letters, it gives you a really good overview of current research. So it's not just practice and it's not just theory. It's that combination of practical things that we can directly bring into our classroom. And I'd also like to say, I know it's very expensive, but it's top-rate quality. You're going to have to pay for an organization that can do this professional learning with the combination of synchronous lessons and asynchronous lessons, and it's just 100% worth every penny of our money. Thank you. And I will be very grateful when I can say I've finished it because I haven't yet. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bojanowski. Appreciate that. I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. MICKI.
Thank you. The Kentucky Reading Academies has also made the Letters for Administrator course available to district and building leaders across the state. In Phase 1, we had 196 administrators who are taking the Letters for Administrator course. That's not exactly correct in terms of total number of administrators participating. We did have some who selected to go through the teacher course so that they could be right in step with their faculty members who are going through that training. But the unique thing about Letters for Administrators is that it equips leaders to support systemic change across buildings, across districts. So there's a special portion of learning that's tailored for the role of administrator. So we're very hopeful that we'll see more administrators sign up and go through the administrator course for that reason. I also wanted to mention that we do have a Letters cohort of 70 administrators who are participating as part of the Principal Partnership Project Initiative, and they sort of have a organic community of practice that they have developed in response to the coursework that's either occurring among their faculty or within their own Letters for Administrators course. And they had the opportunity to visit Hancock County. Hancock County started implementing this work a bit earlier before the passage of Read to Succeed. So it was very nice for those administrators to see structured literacy practices in action within Hancock County. And I do have one quote. So Amy Treese, who's a principal in Henry County, said, "Letters is a rigorous course that has provided me with so much information about teaching foundational skills. I have been able to apply my knowledge almost immediately after each self-guided and live virtual session I've completed." So again, she's saying it is relevant to my role, to my experience, and it's impacted both adult and student learning. We've also taken steps to support educators in engaging families and community members. So the first thing, we partnered with the Kentucky Collaborative for Families in Schools to develop Read at Home Plan guidance, and this is actually an educator-facing document. So we wanted to provide supports to school and district leaders around building relationships with families, having effective communication around literacy specifically, so that as a part of the Read to Succeed Act, the Read at Home plans could be provided to families effectively for the benefit and success of students who have the reading improvement plan. You can see that in the spring, so soon, we will be releasing the Read at Home Plan Family Resource Guide, and that will be a parent and family facing document. So it will include activities aligned to the essential components of reading that parents can do at home. We don't want this to be unmanageable. We are not seeing the parent directly as teacher, but they can have conversations with their child around literacy and around reading and phonemic awareness and sounds and all of the things that we would want them to have at home that will better support them to be successful in school. The next slide, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but for your review, I wanted you to have access to the links of some key documents and web pages around Read to Succeed. You can see there we do have an implementation guide. CHRISTIE mentioned our valid and reliable early literacy assessments. That's the page there. We also have a page for the Kentucky Reading Academies and a Phase 2 interest form that's currently open. The last link is our Instructional Resources Consumer Guide. So it's the guidance that will signal quality around the instructional resources that we would want to see implemented across districts and schools within the state. In terms of next steps, I wanted to bring forward a few items. So we do have a request for proposal open for a third-party evaluator of the statewide professional learning program, so of letters specifically, and the eventual coaching model. So that RFP closes on March the 17th and will move into the scoring and evaluation phase. We felt like that was critical for us. We need transparent feedback. We need to know what's working, what is not working, so that we can better meet the needs of educators across the state. So that will be a key step that is in the works that will be in place soon. The next thing I wanted to mention, so Phase 2 for letters implementation, the formal registration will open in May of 2023. So we are constantly promoting it, eliciting more people to participate alongside of this work. And their actual professional learning will begin in October of 2023. So we'll let people get back into school a bit, and then they'll be able to pick up with the professional learning coursework. We are working to develop our literacy coaching model, so we are looking to hire 4 regional coaching directors who will oversee and support the school-based literacy coaches who will be placed in schools with greatest need. And that was the language of the bill, but we talked about that really that would be the schools with the highest percentage of novice. So we do want to see supports across the state, but really focusing on those schools with greatest need. And we think that they could truly benefit from a highly qualified coach who can come in and support educators and administrators within that building. So that will actually, their placement will begin in 24-25, but we're looking to hire them moving into 23-24 so that we can invest in those folks and have people who are of quality to go out and provide supports to districts. Next, we're seeking university partners for a pilot program, and this could take the shape of a few different things. It could be a letters professional learning cohort for pre-service teachers. We're looking to partner with universities to develop exemplar methods courses, early literacy modules that could be used with pre-service teachers, or frankly, even principal candidates within those universities as well. So we are trying to build some relationships around that work. We do have the funding to be able to support that work moving forward. And then lastly, we know that there is also need for our 6 through 12 teachers to receive professional learning around this as well. We have certainly prioritized elementary educators first, but we cannot neglect those teachers who are providing supports to students who are in middle school, who are in high school, which again, the data also shows are in need of supports around reading. And I'm going to shift our focus now to mathematics. Almost finished near the end of the presentation. Thank you for your patience with us. But as we look at mathematics, I'd like to begin with the fiscal year 22 Mathematics Achievement Fund grant. So this is the first year of a new grant cycle, and the budget is $5 million each year of the biennium for the Mathematics Achievement Fund. And you can see there for the instructional coaching grant, we awarded 13 schools at $62,000 each, and 50% 50% of the teachers within those schools are being coached in year 1. The remaining 50% will be coached in year 2. And the Kentucky Mathematics Innovation Tool, or the KMIT data, it shows that teachers are benefiting from the coaching cycles, that they're growing. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the impact of that. So within those 13 schools, that's directly impacting 2,839 students who are in the classrooms of those teachers currently being coached. But based on school-wide professional learning from the math coach, it has the potential to reach up to 7,844 students. We did offer, with the remaining funds in the MAF grant, a mini grant, and it will sound similar. We're going to do something similar with RTA, but it will be for the purchase of high-quality instructional resources to support mathematics instruction and intervention and the associated professional learning. So we had 75 schools who were eligible for the $40,000, and we're at the point that RFP, or RFA, I should say, has closed, and now we are working to build out the contracts with each of those schools for the $40,000. Next, professional learning is offered via the Roadmap to Implementing High-Quality Math Instruction workshop, and we have participants, both teachers and instructional coaches, and the focus of the professional learning is around standards-aligned, grade-level instruction, and student engagement in the mathematical practices, and that the focus on the practices is really key, because that's where our students start to engage with deeper learning. That's where they start to apply their mathematical knowledge and really transfer that across grade levels, across content areas. So that professional learning is an important point. We also are in year 1 of a 3-district, 6-school pilot around developing high-quality local mathematics curriculum. And so we come alongside of these districts who are developing a local curriculum, which they are afforded in law, and it provides professional learning supports around the selection of instructional resources, instructional coherence. So that has been a very rewarding experience. And then we always ask the pilot participants to test drive, so to speak, our consumer guide. We did that with the reading and writing pilot, and now our math pilot districts are doing that as well. So once they have had the opportunity to engage with the consumer guide, that will become published statewide in April of 2023. I do want to say we are doing everything we can at the moment for numeracy and mathematics with what we currently have. Implementing large statewide initiatives, as is evidenced by literacy, involves money and human capital. And so I just wanted to, I'm not here to ask for increased funding today, but I did want to acknowledge that we know there is also great need with mathematics. And so we are looking for ways to better support the field with the funding that we do have to increase student outcomes for mathematics across the state. Other states have seen gains in mathematics as a result of their literacy initiatives, and so that's something that we will be tracking, but we don't yet have data around that just yet. And there are 2 targeted high school initiatives that I did not put on a slide today, but the funding sources, it's coming from a different pot of money. So Math Nation was a budget line item for the State Fiscal Recovery Fund of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. So it is federal funds. And Math Nation we are promoting it as more of a supplemental instructional resource. Part of what we are wanting for instructional resources across the state is that they are externally validated, that there's a clear evidence basis for that research. And so with Math Nation, it doesn't meet all of our definitions for an HQIR, a high quality instructional resource, but it certainly could be used to supplement and accelerate student learning, specifically for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. So that is a resource that's available. And then we also have a micro-credentialing program. It's the XQ Math Badging Pilot. This is in partnership with the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support. And so it's in the planning stage this year, but we are working with a pilot group of districts, but it too supports Algebra 1 specifically. And we're thinking about how in future phases would we want to include geometry potentially, or would we want to do a second cohort that's connected to Algebra 1? But all of that is in the works at the moment as well. So we have now reached the stage of it. We're very happy to take any questions that members of the committee may have to clarify all of this information just shared. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have a question from Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I have a few questions, but I'll do them one at a time.
Do one at a time.
I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to start off on math.
Okay. Okay.
You talked about Math Nation on the A&R committee last year in the interim. They made a presentation. I'm talking about, I guess it would have been 22 now. And I've also been talked about a program called Advanced Kentucky. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Could you
yes.
compare Math Nation and Advanced Kentucky and the differences between them?
So I think in Kentucky, Advanced Kentucky has been our partner for many years, and they have a very rich evidence basis to show impact. Their objective is exposing more students to rigorous math, science, and English courses. They are very helpful in terms of communicating the message around open enrollment. So all students should have the capacity and opportunity to engage in advanced placement courses, in pre-AP courses. I will say, as a high school English teacher, I worked as a teacher and went through the professional learning experiences via Advanced Kentucky, and it was very impactful for all of my classes, not just the advanced placement courses that I taught. Math Nation, they do have data, internal data that shows their effectiveness, but we don't have trend data. We aren't able to see the impact as much as, say, an Advanced Kentucky in our state.
Madam Chair, if I could ask an additional question.
Yes, sir.
Now on to literacy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mickey and Christy, for being here. Your presentation was somewhat familiar to me
Just a little
this
bit.
morning, and I really appreciated the testimonials. It helps reinforce to me the 4 or 5 years we spent working on this was worthwhile. One thing you didn't mention, it's a very rigorous program, the Reading Academies, but you all have developed a process whereby teachers could get a rank change with this. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. And Christy, I'll start, but I want you to make sure you clarify anything. So right now we know that there are 2 of the regional educational cooperatives who have been approved to, really it's an early literacy CEO program where they are studying more broadly the connections to foundational literacy, and they've been able to embed the bridge to practice supports from letters as evidence that will go into their completed portfolio to demonstrate the work that they've done for that rank change. So that is GREC and also Southeast South Central. I think that there are other co-ops who are looking to do the same thing. But Representative Titchen, we've been very encouraged by that because, these teachers are participating and the KDE is paying for the materials and the professional learning itself, but they're not, unless the local district has done something to provide stipends or supports, they're not getting anything beyond the learning, which is the goal. So these CEO opportunities have been wonderful to see because now they're doing the work anyway, and that could lead to rank change for that professional.
I just hear a lot of the teachers talk about this is a great added incentive for completing the work because this impacts their career for the rest of their career and their retirement too. So we were very thrilled that opportunity come along for our participants.
Madam Chair, if you'll indulge me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. We're talking about next steps, and as we look at the bill, we're working on the coaching models, but really on the post-secondary education portion. I appreciate the partnership opportunities you're looking at to pilot project with the universities on this. I think it's important. I think it's beneficial for prospective teachers in their education prep programs to have this information before
Yes.
they ever get to the elementary school. Could you elaborate a little bit more on efforts on that and how to get buy-in from our post-secondary partners on this?
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. And I wanted to go back. So we do have 9 EPP faculty going through letters at this time, and that's from the University of Louisville, Murray State, Lindsey Wilson, NKU, Bellarmine, Georgetown College, Campbellsville, Union College, and Western Kentucky University. So our theory was that if they are able to go through the professional learning, then they would see the benefit of that for the students in their classrooms as well. And so the second phase of that would be to collaborate with them. And again, it has not been solidified whether or not we would want to support their pre-service students in going through letters and having them learn from that experience. But I very passionately want to find partners to work on the exemplar methods courses, the early literacy modules. And we do have colleagues in the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness who are building relationships in that capacity around the modules. And so we think that that work will be moving forward, but I cannot yet speak to the exact partners in that work just yet. But I'm very hopeful that that will move forward and we'll be able to speak to that at a later date.
Madam Chair, one more, I promise, just
Hey,
one more.
we don't have to be out of here until 2 o'clock.
It's almost lunchtime. Now, I may be stealing Representative Bojanowski's thunder here, but I want to talk to you a little bit about dyslexia. And I know we've talked about the universal screeners, early identification, and where do you see? And I know Representative Bojanowski has a bill, may to a shall, and we've had some conversations about that. But where do you see Senate Bill 9 going in that direction and helping us in the early identification and providing proper interventions for dyslexia students?
Absolutely. And I honestly would love for Representative Bojanowski to speak to this as well. But one of the reasons why the letters professional learning was chosen is because it is approved by the International Dyslexia Association. And they do not do that lightly. So there is a pamphlet, and it's actually linked on one of your slides, that shows the connection between the letters professional learning content and structured literacy practices for dyslexia students who are at risk for dyslexia as well. So all of that is embedded within the professional learning model. And then Christy, if you can speak a little bit about our guidance around the dyslexia screeners and what currently exists in that space.
You're talking about the universal screeners? Yeah. And many of our assessment pieces with the universal screeners do have specific components that are noted that that at least alert our educators to there is an issue with dyslexia that you need to kind of diagnose further. So we do have several of those on our universal screener list, and several of those also have components that you can, educators can purchase. And once they get that at-risk kind of notification, then they can deep dive deeper into that dyslexia at-risk notification and determine really what students need to close that gap and diagnose and intervene effectively.
I will say, though, to Representative Bojanowski's point, right now, because that language is a may versus a shall, we can't point to many district policies that where there has been that intentionality with the dyslexia screening. Anchorage is one example. They do have a policy, and that's what we tend to point people to if there are questions around that. So there is a area of discussion around that may versus shall, but I truly believe that what we're doing with our Read to Succeed initiatives, it will get to that prevention. It will get to early identification with the reading improvement plan that is required for students beginning next year, the next academic year.
We're good. Okay. Representative Bojanowski.
Okay, so just to follow up about dyslexia, the explicit systematic instruction that we learn from the Letters program is exactly what children with dyslexia need. They might just need it more intensely or, a little bit extra above what the other kids. But if we're not using structured literacy type programs, we are losing a lot of children with dyslexia who could learn to read. And what's very unfortunate is that, for kids with social or financial capital, they go out and do tutoring and get this training. But the kids who don't, we're not providing it in so many of our districts. So I guess that would kind of add on to what we were saying. If I may.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. So my question is, how can we ensure that all of our teachers know that this professional learning is available? I know in my district that it was not shared district-wide. So we try to get it out, knowing, and so forth. But can KDE push out an email to every teacher? Is that even possible?
So we are trying very hard to get ahead of the communications in light of phase 2 implementation. And so we have been working, and Christy actually has been working to utilize our testimonials on Twitter and other social media avenues. We have utilize the Commissioner's Monday message, which goes to district level staff. We have a standards newsletter that reaches over 8,000 educators and signees. And we have listservs. So we will push that messaging out in all of those avenues. But in full transparency, it is shocking to us every time we hear someone say, like, we have never heard about this opportunity. So we are working diligently to ensure that the communication is proliferated across all of our educators, certainly the elementary ones who would qualify. It's just, it is a constant problem to overcome.
I constantly speak at cooperatives as well, and I feel like I shout to the rooftops constantly because I want every teacher to have the opportunity to take this. So, we're trying as hard as we can to get every educator to be interested, or at least, know about this professional learning that's being offered.
And Christy has been presenting at numerous conferences and other things as well.
Yep, I saw her at a conference. So there we go.
Vouch for me.
So I think from my colleagues, from some of them, I'm hearing frustration in that they're learning and they're understanding how children need to learn to read. But if their district implements a curriculum that isn't aligned, I'm the teacher in the room next door to me. You must follow this curriculum with fidelity. And many of the pieces of it aren't aligned with what she's learning in letters. So I know that's a big question on how we can handle it. I know that there is legislation that could potentially address the selection of curricula at a district level, but it's an amazing, powerful training, and it has to be incredibly frustrating to know that the best way is to teach a child to read, yet your district may not be letting you do it.
And I think the Tennessee story most recently, usually we're citing Mississippi, but there have been some amazing things that are happening with our neighbor, Tennessee. And that's the thing. They have paired the high quality professional learning, such as letters around how the brain works and how students learn to read, with a high quality instructional resource. And, with it, we are working, Representative Bojanowski, to really signal quality around those resources. Again, that reading and writing consumer guide points to the green rated resources on Ed Reports. And the reality is there are some districts who are choosing to utilize a red rated resource. And so I think for us, that is part of our challenge, making sure that we're also helping and supporting educators in identifying what is high quality and what resources would best meet not only those needs but our local context as well.
Good. Okay. This has been very good and very helpful. I just have a few questions. What are the state aggregate test scores for reading and math in elementary?
So you have on the first slide, I did not pull the math data, but I will get that to you after this meeting. I'll make sure I share that as via email. But so you have overall the the percentage of proficient and distinguished from 2015 through 2022 for just third grade reading. So I would need to get you a lot more information, and we can do that following this meeting so that you can have a full picture for both
I would
reading
like
and
to see
mathematics.
that,
Absolutely.
if you don't mind.
We can follow up with that.
And so of the initiatives that you have presented, do you feel like letters is the answer to literacy?
Letters is not a magic bullet. It's not the only thing, but I do believe that there's the evidence basis to suggest that it is a very important foundational step. So people have to understand the why in order to effectively implement the strategy. So if we just offered a high quality instructional resource without the professional learning, then I don't think it would be as effective. To me, it is a critical piece. And I think that what we're hearing from educators is that it is a critical piece, and it's arguably the most important, significant reading professional learning that they've had to this point in their careers.
I do want to see the numbers that you send me for the aggregate numbers, but I have seen some data and it's really bad. It's just awful. So what programs are people using that aren't good, that you're trying to eliminate, that are not moving the needle forward?
So I think again, we utilize Ed Reports, which is an impartial organization that works with committees of teachers and educators and researchers to evaluate different instructional resources. So for us, again, we're signaling toward the green. There are some that are commonly used, Fontes and Pinnell and others that tend to be utilized across the state that on Ed Reports are red rated for any number of reasons, not just the focus on foundational literacy, but across the 5 pillars.
Okay. And my bill to do from may to shall went through, I think it was attached to 389, I believe. So you're going to get your shall. So. Representative Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of my questions have been answered. I may have just a couple and then maybe a statement, but in my opinion, I get asked all the time, what can we do to improve education? My comeback has always been, since I've been here and even before, we need to teach kids to read by the end of 3rd grade. That's where our money should be spent. That's where our focus should be spent. We know this. We've always known this, but guess what? We've not done it. We have not put our money where our mouth is, and it's catching up to us and has for some time. But, I'm excited about some of this, and I think Representative Tipton pointing to the university part of that. And, I was a superintendent for 13 years, principal for many years, teacher. And one of the things that I witnessed a lot, our teachers wanting to teach kids how to read, but guess what? They didn't have the knowledge to teach them how to read. Okay, and that's an issue. So I don't know if it's going to take some kind of legislation or what, but I don't know if we can legislate colleges, but maybe if we got every university in the state together and sit down and said, okay, this is an issue that we're coming out with. What, is it 6 hours they have in reading now, or is it college? It's 3 or 6. It's not very many on teaching kids how to read is my point. So that's going to be an important issue. And then also, you said 149 schools got the Read to Achieve grant.
Yes, sir.
Do we have the data on how those schools did compared to the ones that didn't get a grant?
So I would be able to give that to you next year. The cycle just started at the beginning of this academic year, so it would be interesting to see. But I will say we do have Read to Achieve participants who are also going through the letters professional learning. So it's not an either or. In some cases, they have the grant and they're also electing to go through the professional learning.
Well, I think the data is going to be really important, Madam Chair. You want me to just keep going? I have several, so all right.
We've got till 2 o'clock.
Okay, all right. Well, I won't take that long, I promise. But I think the data on the research that you are doing is going to be very important also. And then the other thing, and I challenge my fellow representatives to do, is we know this is our issue. So I'm not trying to tell people what to do or anything, but even in our education committee in the next couple of years, most of our bills should be focused on this one issue, is getting kids how to read on grade level by 3rd grade. That's going to take care of a lot of our other issues moving forward. So we know that. We need some legislation that says excess SEEK funds need to go toward literacy. It's going to have to be something bold like that if we're going to improve. We're not going to improve with it, like you all said, the same status quo. Our money's been spent here, and here. We know we predict prison populations, economic indicators. We know we predict a lot of these issues that we have in the state, but yet we continue to spend our money in other places. And money's not always the answer, but if it's data-driven and research-based, we're going to get results. And what you emphasize gets better. That's just a fact. No matter what school system you're in, it's going to get better. And also, I'm glad you said it was another tool. Okay, teachers need a variety of tools in their classroom, not just one program. you give me a great program, but if that's all I have in the classroom, I need other things. I need phonics. I need a lot of different things to make up a curriculum to teach a student how to read. And I'm excited, but I just hope that we can, as a body, if we really want to improve education in the state of Kentucky, that we will do one thing that we know is going to improve. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox, but I appreciate your comments in your presentation, and I hope in the future we can do a lot of great things for our students. Thank you.
Representative Bojanowski.
So many thoughts. So just to kind of think about, if children don't score proficient or distinguished on a K-Prep or KSA, that does not mean that they can't read. There could be many other pieces that could go there. And I also caution us as a body in using those state end of the year tests to show our improvement, because I've dug into how those tests are created. They are created to separate children. If there's a question that too many children on the try the items out, it doesn't get used. So this is not a measure that we can really use to show improved reading. We need to look at a different measure. That's number one. And number two, yes, letters training is going to help us know how to better teach foundational skills. But we as a state need to also ensure that our children are given opportunities to build their knowledge. And that knowledge then provides the context from where they can answer comprehension questions, infer, and all those things. So I'm always, my predecessor in this seat would say, but they still might score novice on their end of year tests. So we really need to look into those accountability measures. And you can read, we need to have the measures for basic reading as well as the comprehension pieces.
Okay, thank you. Any other follow-ups? All right. Thank you very much. May I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I steal all yours?